All right, so I've been working on something through something recently, and I can properly feel that there's something, meant to be learning in this. Because on one hand, I'm like truly grateful because, I like still have a roof over my head. The business is doing pretty well. Things aren't as chaotic as they were. But at the same time, I also kind of feel stuck, and not just stuck, but actually like certain parts or in certain parts of my life, things are actually getting worse, like unexpectedly. And I'm kind of in that place where, I started asking like, what am I doing wrong? Am I missing something? Am I being disobedient? And I actually ended up in Haggai chapter 1. And it hit me quite hard because it talks about, the people, they started so well. They've just been given the land back, and God asked them to rebuild the temple so you could obviously have a relationship with them and spend some time with them. But then they stopped after a short while, and then instead they started focusing on their own lives and their own homes and so on. And then they're wondering why things weren't going too well. And God actually said to them, you have so much but harvested little. You earn wages only to put them in bags with holes in it. And I thought, oh, okay, is that maybe what's going on with me? Am I focusing on the wrong things? Am I actually being disobedient in any way that I'm perhaps not seeing? And I then kind of flipped over to John chapter 11, which is the story of Lazarus. And this kind of shifted my perspective because, Jesus heard that Lazarus was ill, and he didn't go straight away. Instead, he delayed it by 2 days. And because of that, Lazarus died. He was like proper dead, like in the tomb for 4 days, like dead. So now the situation wasn't just bad, it actually got a lot worse. So from the outside, it looked like, Jesus just didn't come through, right? But, because everyone's like, well, he could have healed him when he was ill and all of that kind of stuff. But Jesus actually said something at the beginning of the chapter. He said that this sickness will not end in death. It is for the glory of God. And that's when it really clicked for me. Sometimes the situation getting worse doesn't mean that God isn't in it. It may actually be the very thing that he uses to reveal himself through it. And I had this thought, like, imagine if, like, when Jesus finally showed up, that the people turned around, like Lazarus' family turned around and said, oh no, don't worry about it, it's too late now, we don't really want your help anymore, or there's nothing you could do. They would have completely missed the miracle of Lazarus being brought back to life. And then I realized that this is the danger that we often face, is that, when things get worse, that's exactly when we are tempted to walk away or pull away from him. And Jesus actually says something earlier in the same chapter, John chapter 11, he talks about, walking in the day versus walking in the night. And he said that, those who walk in the light don't stumble, but those who walk in the dark do. And that really hit me because, like, when things get worse, you have a choice to make, as you always do. And, you either stay with him, like, even when you don't understand, and, like, properly stay with him, who is the light, or you start pulling away. But, normally when you start pulling away, that's when you start to stumble, because, not always necessarily in a big way, but, just enough to start doing things in your own strength. And then when you do things in your own strength, that's when you'll start to stumble, or even just pulling away or just being annoyed at him. And, I had to catch myself with that because, it's easy to start thinking, like, why is this not working? Why isn't anything changing? Whatever. But, like, what I'm learning is this. Sometimes it's not about doing something big, and it's not always about figuring everything out. It's just about staying with Jesus, like actually staying with him, like walking with him, keep trusting him, like even when it doesn't make sense, like even when you can't see anything changing right there and then. Because remember, it's not always in our time, is in his time. Because yes, you know, there are moments like in Haggai where you do need to check yourself to make sure, but then there are also moments like in John chapter 11 where God is working, but it just didn't look like that yet. So where I kind of ended up was, what I ended up with was, you know, if things feel like they're getting worse, you know, don't walk away from Jesus. You know, don't distance yourself, because you just never know. You know, he's the only one that can actually bring life out of that situation, out of any situation. And if you step away too early, you may just miss the very thing that he was about to do, where he's perhaps just about to reveal himself in a way that you may have never seen before. If you felt encouraged by this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you know of anybody that could do with encouragement, or that could do with hearing this message, please feel free to share it. Otherwise, yeah, if you've got any words of encouragement that you can place in the comments below, please do so. Thank you for watching.